Hey everyone, it's been a while. So today we're going to make another video about Next.js and Strapi, and this time it's going to be short because we're not going to try to deploy to production or anything like those other videos that I made previously. This time we're going to do it on a local machine, and what we're going to do is an article page. So it might seem kind of simple, and it relatively is, but how exactly do you connect Strapi and Next.js so you can actually get articles on your page? If you have a blog, you want blog posts, and that's what we're going to do. And we are going to get this result at the end, which is, an article page. You might have recognized it if you have read The Verge. I basically try to reproduce the design of The Verge, which is kind of difficult for some elements, but that's not what we're going to focus on today. We're going to focus on Strapi and Next.js, and then after you will have all the elements to be able to get the HTML and style it on your page. So the first part that is important to understand is static generation. And static generation with Next.js is something that I mentioned on in the previous video, and it is that you can generate with Next.js your pages at build time. So you don't have to render them every single time someone goes to your website. The server is actually not doing anything. All the HTML pages are pre-rendered at build time and are just sitting there in a, in your Firebase application, in your S3 bucket, just sitting there, just HTML pages. So it's extremely fast, and there is absolutely no server running to be able to get your pages. So with Next.js, you have two functions that are useful for static generation. getStaticPaths is the method that you're going to use to get the list of paths that you want to render. It's basically the list of pages that you want to render. You're telling Next.js, hey, this is a list. And you have another function that is called getStaticProps, and getStaticProps will then fetch, based on those paths, the props that are used to render the pages. Those are the main part on Next.js application, getStaticPath and getStaticProps. So what we're going to do now is go take a look at Strapi. Just so you know, I created a mono repo with a Next application and a Strapi application. There will be a link in the description with the code. I found I think a perfect way to share the code for all the videos. I will just have one repo that you can just go to and watch. If I make a modification, you will be able to receive a notification for that. So just one repo and multiple branches for each video. I think that's probably the best way. But let's get back to this. So if we go to Strapi and we take a look at the data that we need a content type. And the content type that we need is post. Obviously you can have the name that you want, but I called it post, and I created this way. First, a slug, that's the name that you will see in the URL. And the slug is basically a unique identifier, and that's the type that I put. It's not going to work if you have multiple articles using the same URL, so it needs to be a unique identifier. Then you have the title, which is the title of the article, the content, and the content is a rich text. The way that I put it is content will be in Markdown. So Markdown is extremely useful, and you have a lot of library out there to be able to convert Markdown to HTML, which is perfect. That's what we want. We want to render rich content into HTML, but as editor, we don't exactly want to write HTML in Strapi. Just using Markdown is way better, and even someone that has no knowledge of coding whatsoever can just jump in and start writing articles. Then we have tags to try to figure out what exactly this blog is all about, creation date, and a hero image. So the hero image is basically what you see on the top of the article. And that's pretty much it. So what I did is I created two distinct posts. The posts are actually not so distinct. The only difference is the slug and the title. The content is the same, but you're going to see what you're getting here. What I'm going to do, and what I think is always kind of better with Strapi, if you're using the GraphQL plugin to kind of fetch data, is to use the playground. So when you're using the playground, you can get the query that you want, that you think is the right one. Just press play and you see, okay, I get the result that I'm looking for. And then you can copy the query. So let's take a look at the code that I have here. What is this function exactly doing? Apollo client, I got it from this service that I created. If you follow the previous video, you already seen it. Is a quick service just to be able to get an Apollo client that will look at Strapi. I'm using this Apollo client to get the query of the blog post, and this is my query. And then I'm constructing the paths that I want to be rendered. So the paths are blog and the slug. That's the path that I want Next.js to render. And the return value of this function is an object with two properties in this situation. The first property is path, and it's the list of paths that you want Next.js that render. The second property is fallback, and fallback controls basically what happened when you are hitting a URL that was not part of the path. So if fallback is false, Next.js will consider that you want everything that is outside of path to go to a 404 page. If fallback equals true, what Next.js is going to assume basically is that it might actually be that you don't want to render those pages at build time, but you actually want to render those pages. So it will try to render those pages at runtime. So let's take a look now at getStaticProps. getStaticProps is using the slug, and you can see that the name of the file, by the way, is slug in brackets .tsx, and it's using this slug in the parameters of getStaticProps. And the query that you see, then again we can take a look at Strapi, the playground. Let's try to fetch one article first. And in this query, as you can see, I'm trying to fetch a post where the slug is equal to Dino10. I tried it, I see the results, everything looks good. I can just copy it, then paste it again here in my query. I know that params.slug is going to be Dino10, so I can just replace it with the value. Then I want to fetch the first result because there is always going to be, because slug is a unique identifier, there's always going to be only one result. So once I got all of that, I'm pretty much done. So we're not going to go too much into detail about the page in itself, but what you need to know is that now you basically have your post props that is available, and you can use it to, let's just say, render the post and render the HTML. The way I did it here is a bit dirty. It's kind of let's just say, more of a demo purposes, but I essentially have the URL that is pointing to the image in a hard-coded way. I obviously try not to do that. Like, that's not gonna work in production. I hard-coded literally the URL, and I here using Markdown it to render the Markdown to HTML, and then I have all of this that is essentially styling the HTML that you get. When you're using something like Markdown it, you're going to have you're not going to have classes, so it's only going to have elements, so you can just style elements directly. Like I mentioned, I will leave a link to the code in the description. If this video has been helpful for you, don't hesitate to leave a like, and you can subscribe if you want more video of this type. I will try to release maybe a couple of videos per month. Thank you for watching, and until next time.